Okay, our next speaker is Valerie Peterson from Grand Valley State University, a colleague there. And the title of her talk is Semantic Reactions, Liberal and Conservative.
And then here's your remote. Sure. Okay, you're good.
First, I want to thank Jermaine for getting this set up. I don't usually use PowerPoints, and but this one kind of needed it, so that's why I'm doing this. So, and thank you, Stephen, for the wonderful setup about unflattening communication, because I think we are all starting to feel like this is what we need to be doing. And I came up with this talk because I'm tired of people throwing around the words liberal and conservative. I usually get like a pet peeve, and then it turns into like a little essay, and then either it, I don't know, this one just seemed to lend itself to this particular conference. So we know today that language is polarized. I've talked about the ideas of Jaron Lanier and Andre Mir, who explained that social media has a lot to do with that, zeros and ones, and the computer. Not going to go into that today, because I think if you're interested, I can send you in some good directions. I get frustrated by this. The only social media I have is academia.edu and ResearchGate, which I don't hang out on, but I have my articles on. And, I can't stop the world from doing this kind of stuff just because I'm not doing this kind of stuff. And I'm not just interested in saving myself, but I really think that there's some problems that we're going to have because we're locked into these systems. It's very hard to tell people to pull away from their social media sites and stop being on TikTok. So the next best thing is to try to deal with the oppositional thinking. We've always had oppositional thinking in our culture, and we can look to the ideas of Alfred Korzybski. I think the idea of semantic reaction is very useful today if you want to try and clean up your own behavior and maybe help other people clean up theirs. These ideas come from Science and Sanity, the 4th edition, on page 24. I'm going to read just a little quote, but then I'm going to summarize. Korzybski says, the psychological reaction of a given individual to words and language and other symbols and events in connection with their meanings. This is how he defines semantic reaction. He says it's a total thing. This psychological reaction can also include those that arise once a person begins to analyze their reactions or once somebody else helps them analyze their reactions. So all of these things he calls semantic reactions. Korzybski also explained that semantic reactions are non-elementalistic, which means that they are an integrated combination of both emotional and intellectual factors, that it isn't just one or the other. And it's easy to forget that, like when you think of your vitamin C, how we've extracted that from the orange. For Korzybski, it's all orange. You don't take the vitamin C, you have to eat the orange. So basically, semantic reactions are simply reactions. They're not negative ones. People think of this as a pejorative, like a semantic reaction is a bad thing. But a semantic reaction is just the reaction that you have to a word, and it's both logical and emotional. There's two kinds, the signal kind, which is the animal kind, and the symbol kind, which is the human kind. And his argument is kind of that we need to work ourselves towards the human kind, which means we need to pause and not instantaneously react to things, but take a moment, think about them, have other people help us work through what they mean. And for Korzybski, the human was to be preferred to the animal response. So we don't want to be doing knee-jerk reactions, either good or bad, to words or phrases. So there are reactions towards liberal and conservative. At first, I was going to put pictures up here of people in tie-dyes and, things on the Capitol steps. And I was like, that is exactly the wrong approach, because we're trying to think of these as words. Images are part of the problem of getting people into these semantic reactions, because your brain is populated with attitudes and ideas. So instead, I went to the delayed human symbol kind of reaction that you have in the dictionary, and I looked up what these words meant, and these are sort of just a sort of a summary of liberal and a summary of conservative. So, liberal, open to new ideas; conservative, favoring traditional views and values, and tending to oppose change. You can see these as oppositional, but they needn't be. Sometimes people feel one way, sometimes they feel the other way. Now, that said, there are sort of a dark side to both of these terms, negative ways of being liberal, negative ways of being conservative. So, when liberal gets out of hand, we call it wild or unruly, unprincipled, directionless, those kinds of things. And for conservative, when we see it in negative form, we see it as stingy or stodgy or fearful, afraid of change, unwilling to change, these kinds of things. So I put these on a map, and this is the unflattening effort, right? So, a lot of times we have a continuum. We'll put the liberal on the left, because that's where people usually put it. And then I'll put wild, unruly, and unprincipled on the other side. So we'll make this like an axis. And then we can put conservative up here in red, and then we can put below it stingy, stodgy, and heartless. I would have the larger definitions, but this is just what I can fit into the blocks. And then I was going to try to locate, where people would be, or where, and this isn't like a permanent place necessarily, but like a temporary place that we could be on anywhere in the quadrants. So the first one is sort of hypocritical, because if you're conservative, then you wouldn't be wild and unruly and unprincipled, and yet we see people like that all the time. I call the one that's towards the wild side the oops, I did it again, or do as I say, not as I do. The ones who sin during the week and apologize for it on the weekends. The ones who say, I did this bad thing, and so now you're prevented from being able to do it because I don't want you to do what I did. Or the person who says they believe in family values, but then they cheat on their spouse, and then, there's just a whole bunch of things that fit in that category. If you're not quite as bad, you might be on this side, which is the conservative side, which leans towards, it's more like the unprincipled, right? My people, my family, my race, my country, my religion only. Sort of the I am, I support my family, but I don't care for my neighbor, or my race is important and I'm going to support my race, and the other race has this and that, and so we're at war with each other. My religion, we see that a lot. This can go from as mild as team spirit to as bad as we're going to kill them because they don't belong here. And so that's the one side that can be kind of negative. On the other hand, there's the other sort of hypocrite, the stingy, stodgy, heartless liberal. And this is sort of a contradiction, because liberals aren't supposed to be stingy. You think of like a liberal pie of ice cream as a good thing. So here I have like the all talk and no action liberal. These are the people who, I feel like I'm doing this right now. I'm giving a talk at a conference. Whoop-de-whoop-de-doo, I'm really changing the world here. Clicktivism, when people think they're clicking on stuff and then that's going to make for social change. Fashionable wokeness, what's the flag or the sign of the day, comes and goes. Inclusion and equity at the university, when they don't give a rat's behind about how the adjunct faculty are making their way through their lives. I care about class, but this kind of thing, but not really. And so I find that one problematic. The further away from the stingy, stodgy, and heartless is the sort of the my causes only, which is a kind of comparable to the my people, my family, my race, my country, my religion. In this case, a lot of people in the liberal territory, they have found communities. So it's like, LGBTQ issues, but, screw the cisgen people. They don't have any problems. They don't have any problems with their sexuality. We need to talk about that. Or vice versa, cisgen only, screw the LGBTQ community, they don't need any help or assistance, my sort of groups only. And then, ethnic pride, feminisms, just sort of the one cause that's so important to the person. And a lot of times that is a consequence of that person's own personal experience. But everybody has personal experiences, and we've all been damaged by things, so it's harder to think more broadly than that. This corner is a very unhappy corner. This is where you have under the wild, unruly, and also a little bit stingy, stodgy is the destruction, delinquency. So you can think of the person who takes advantage of sexual liberation and has sex with a lot of people without being concerned with unintended pregnancies or spreading disease. Libertine would go there. On the other hand, towards the stodgy, heartless, stingy, you get the greed and theft behavior, which is, that I'm, preserving family fortune at the expense of the surrounding community or profiting off of other people's labor. I think bad capitalism goes there, where you are more interested in your own corporate profits and you don't mind grinding down the people who are actually making the money. And so I put the sociopath and the psychopaths here. Corporate profits over human existence, the crazy miser, the paranoid hoarder, the cruel abuser, the fascist, the strongman, all that stuff goes down there. You've got the destruction and the greed and theft. So we don't want that. We want to go up here to the manhood of humanity, and I'm going to call it man. You know why? Because it's the men who need more fixing, I think, than the women right now. So yes, we need some manhood, and some ladies might need to become more manly as well. We'll include that, but seriously. So up here we've got a conservative liberal or a liberal conservative, conservative, moderate, call it what you will. This is where I think we have what we would call, it's also a hypocrite, right? You also have sometimes liberal conservative, but because there's tentative commitments, you make commitments to things and then you shift them as needed. You're not uncommitted, but you're not so solidly committed that you can't change. And you're not so tentative that you don't make any commitments to anything. So some people are so damaged and have said or they're so power messed up, they can't really imagine being in that quadrant. But this, I think, is the quadrant of maturity, of the manhood of humanity. Sometimes things need to be changed. Sometimes things should stay the same. Sometimes we should tolerate things. Sometimes we should not tolerate things. Sometimes we should give generously. Sometimes we should think really carefully about what and when we give. And so the upshot of this exercise is just to encourage symbolic reactions, the symbol reactions, rather than the signal reactions. When you hear the words liberal and conservative, don't go where those things sometimes take you and where the social media take you and where the images take you, but take yourself in this direction. 4 ways to encourage simple reactions rather than signal reactions to the words liberal and conservative. First, avoid either or thinking about politics. Things are more complicated than that. Situations are complicated. Acknowledge when you agree with certain things, even if you don't agree on the ways to solve them. Call yourself a moderate. It's not sexy. Nobody likes it. My students hate it. If they like, just pick a side. Stand up for something. I am. Hold the middle. And it's not fun, but if you have the flexibility and you're not too damaged or power screwed up to do it. Just be that way. And then use both terms in positive ways. So, a liberal amount of ice cream, about a conservative approach to the tooth problem. I heard that one recently. I was like, yes, dentist, please, go conservative. And then 4, complicate simple terminological binaries. So if people label you incorrectly, relabel yourself. Point out when people overgeneralize, and we're all liberal and conservative at different times. So try to acknowledge that even if the particular moment you're being conservative or you're being liberal, because it's all sort of in flux, right? All the indexing. Or finally, you can make a little map with more than one axis to remind people that, and yourself, that it's almost always more complicated than that. That's it.
Thank you very much for that, Valerie Peterson.